everyone. Thank you for joining us for another eMarketer Tech Talk, where we host guests from all areas of ad tech, martech, and media. I'm Nancy Tefera-Santos, Senior Vice President, eMarketer at Insider Intelligence. Today, you'll hear how you can build brand trust and drive conversions by leveraging identity data to enrich your user profiles. This is your opportunity to learn. We always want it to be educational. So please use the chat window to send in questions, and I'll get to as many as I can during the Q&A. Now I want to introduce my special guest. I have with me today Liz Rivera, Senior Product Marketing Manager, Customer Identity Cloud at Okta. Liz, welcome.
Thank you, Nancy. I am super excited to be here today. I am happy to be talking about how personalization and identity really go together. And basically today I will be covering how identity enables you to deliver personalization that really works by being able to identify and understand your real customers. All right, so essentially for every marketer and really every company out there, everything starts with the customer. So being able to gather and analyze insights, including preferences and behaviors across all of the touch points that they use to interact with your brand is really essential to improve customer experience, but also to gain a competitive edge. However, with that being said, I think everybody is aware here that we are in the privacy era. So digitization and the explosion of data online really has increased data privacy and data protection concern. And this is obviously for good reason, right? We need to protect our identities. However, marketers now need to abide by new rules that govern how we collect, store, and process data. So this makes our jobs a lot harder when it comes to understanding customers, right? Now, third-party cookies, which obviously play a significant role in cross-site tracking and targeted advertising, they're being phased out. I think we all can feel this pain. Safari and Firefox already started blocking them, but 75% of marketers actually still heavily rely on them. And that's because Google has not phased them out yet from Chrome, but they will be doing this in 2024 is what they have announced. So this means that marketers will need to find alternatives. And really, it results in us having to more so rely on our own first-party and zero-party data. However, with that being said, users obviously are also more privacy aware, and they're not just going to blindly provide data to companies, especially less established brands. And of course, there is a level of distrust, right? And users, us as consumers, we distrust brands when they are asking for too many details about us. In fact, 30% of consumers say that this is a top reason that they distrust a brand. And really the underlying concern is, okay, I'm going to give you data, but how will you intend on using that data? So really it's about companies building trust, establishing a level of trust, and then of course, customers will more than likely provide data if that level of trust is established. But today it's really about providing greater transparency, ensuring that you are protecting the data that you are collecting, and of course, providing your customers with control over their data. But ultimately, the bottom line is that access to customers' personal data has tightened. So it just makes the things a little bit more challenging when we're talking about personalization. However, it's not all doom and gloom. Even in the privacy era, customers, they expect personalization. Over 70% of them do. And they will provide their data in exchange for value. And when I say in exchange for value, that value exchange really translates into more convenient, helpful, and contextualized interactions. And organizations that get this right will actually see an increase in revenues. In fact, 78% of consumers are more likely to make a repeat purchase from companies that personalize. And if you kind of think about it, I'm sure everybody has experience with Amazon. And they get this right. They're making contextualized recommendations based on order history. And when you have something in your shopping cart, they also promote additional items that others have purchased that are in line with that item in your shopping cart. And for me, this has translated into me buying more from Amazon. So they're getting it right, and they are obviously making a lot of money from doing so. But creating that value exchange from our own data is also not easy. And this is primarily due to the fact that the way that we have historically collected data really is a thorn in our side. And according to Gartner, outdated data collection methods will actually lead 80% of organizations to abandon their pursuit of a 360-degree view of the customer. This actually will result in marketers limiting the use of personal data and actually relying on anonymized or aggregate data. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. However, yes, it's helpful, but it does not address consumers' need to be recognized as an individual. So kind of going back to those outdated methods. So this is basically a symptom of data fragmentation. So our companies out there expanding the digital footprints, I think we all have, means that we are now working with more customer data repositories. So, right, the number of touch points that a customer utilizes to interact with the brand has increased, and so has the touch points result in data repositories. So each of these data repositories have their own way of identifying, storing, and capturing customer data. The issue is that matching identities and resolving all of the profiles across these systems to one person is extremely challenging. And here we have today customer data platforms. CDPs are a pretty hot technology. And it's because they actually help to merge records based on attributes like customer name, their phone number, and so on. But customer data platforms, or CDPs, actually collect data as separate events. And because of that, there isn't a single trusted source to really verify the data's legitimacy. And because of this, because there isn't a trusted source, it really makes understanding customers that much harder because the data is really untrustworthy at the end of the day. So a couple of issues basically are the result of this. First, marketers don't know if the data is verified, right? Because the data is not always authenticated. You are not 100% sure if you're even talking to a real person. In fact, 37% of marketers are not sure how many of their database contacts are actually real. Second, is the data clean? Do you know who the customer is every time they log in? Multiple emails from one person can reside in a CRM. This is not uncommon, right? And oftentimes, some of those emails will be outdated. So it really makes it difficult to resolve activity to a single person. And because of that, 58% of marketers out there actually say that leveraging integrated customer data is a challenge. And third, is the data current? Again, when data is collected across different silos, you are not really sure, because it's not even authenticated, if it's actually an active email or active phone number. And actually, it's a big problem for organizations. In fact, poor data quality is a $13 million problem. And it results in suboptimal campaign performance and, of course, wasted marketing dollars, just to name a few issues. And then kind of bringing this back full circle to privacy, even if the data is current, is it okay to use? Do you know if there is proper consent associated with it? And unfortunately, again, because data is fragmented and collected without having a source of truth to verify its legitimacy, 1 in 5 marketers actually report that privacy compliance is a main concern across marketing channels. So we have access to a lot of data, but it's not just about having access to data, right? It needs to be usable. Because if it's not, we cannot make the right connections. We can't make the right links between the data and get a proper picture of our customer. Also, if we cannot trust the data, it's really, we're going against privacy regulation, and obviously also breeding mistrust with our users. So ultimately, to gain a complete and usable view of our customers, we need to ensure that the data that we do obtain is not only accurate, but it's verified and it's also consent forward. So here is where customer identity and access management will enter the conversation. So customer identity and access management, and I'm going to refer to it as CIAM or customer identity going forward. It is a trusted data source. What it does, it really centralizes account registration across multiple applications for a given brand. And it is actually oftentimes the first point of identity resolution. And not only that, it spans continuous interaction through the login. So CIAM controls not only the sign-up process, but also the login process. So it's the first point of entry into your service oftentimes. And it also acts as the point of entry continuously. Additionally, because it has a consolidated interface, CIAM really collects customer-provided data. It manages access, and because of that, that data needs to be verified. So it verifies the legitimacy of the data that is collected. And because of that, there is a trend towards integrating various systems that manage customer data with CIAM tools, because it actually can serve as the glue to accurately stitch together customer identity across all of these systems. Just want to take a quick pause to remind everyone to send in your questions. We're about halfway through the content. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send those in. All right, now I want to talk about 3 key use cases that is CIAM integration with customer data repositories, such as a customer data platform or CDP can solve. And these include taking a user from an anonymous to known customer. I'm also going to cover profile enrichment. And then we will also cover how you can extract actionable insights from identity data. So first, how do we take an individual that we know nothing about to actually building up their known profile? So as I mentioned before, it really starts at account registration. So here you're able to collect first-party data. You're also able to collect consent, acceptance of your terms of service, in addition to verifying identifiers. In this specific example, we're collecting the verified email. And by being able to bidirectionally sync this information to existing customer data repositories like a CDP or a CRM, we are able to make connections between an anonymous profile versus a known user. So in this example, we're going to take the IP address that this user has logged in with, and the connection will be made. So now we can actually connect his known profile that the account that he just created with the anonymous profile. The benefit of that is that now we can bring in a pre-account activity into his post-account created profile, which now really provides this specific organization with a more holistic view of this customer, Lucas, across his journey. The second is, how do we ensure that the customer's profile remains up to date? Data goes stale. There's always going to be some changes. A customer can change their address or their phone number. And of course, preferences, they're not static. They're always evolving. Buying behavior also evolves. As an example, myself, last week, I was in market for a Father's Day gift. My partner loves photography, and so I was looking for a camera. But this week, camera recommendations are not so relevant to me, and I wouldn't really appreciate them. So this is just an example of evolution, right? This is not static. And essentially login, because it's a means to re-enter your services, it really provides a means to capture updated information, updated and or new information. So you can use the login to capture things like new data points, to present new terms of service, and also to actually capture updated preferences. With all of this being said, I just want to make the point that profile enrichment should not be disruptive, because if you tip the scale too much, you'll create a negative user experience. So asking for too much information too quickly not only breeds distrust, but it negatively impacts the experience. So really the goal is to reduce the barriers of entry into your service and to make essential transactions as fuss-free as possible, all the while still being able to enrich the profile. So how do you do that? You can actually do this with SIAM and some key features. First, I want to talk about social connections. So social connections really provides a non-invasive way to enrich profiles. It's really a form of single sign-on and a streamlined sign-up and sign-in. You can actually take user attributes directly and also updates to the social profile that they have, and then bring those attributes into their profile with you. And this is great because basically you're capturing all of this upon account creation. The user doesn't have to sign up with a very long account registration form. And then additionally, you're also able to update the profile during subsequent logins. So anything that they have updated in the social profile will be reflected in their profile with you upon subsequent logins. Another thing that can be used to layer on top of social connections is progressive profiling. So progressive profiling further enriches profiles with additional first and zero-party data, including preferences. It actually can be used to prompt users to provide additional information about themselves at the appropriate interaction points. So for instance, questions, they can be presented during subsequent logins, when the customer interacts like with certain content, or if they make a purchase, that's when you could trigger a specific set of progressive questions. And then this example, this specific organization is wanting to capture date of birth and city of residence, so they could, send out, better targeted promotions. These two bits of information they weren't able to obtain from the social connection via Gmail here for Lucas's account. So during his next login, he is prompted to provide this information. So really just want to say, again, want to reiterate the point that doing this, like really asking too many questions, trying to build the profile all at once and too soon, it makes the experience fall apart. It also breeds distrust. It's just like dating. If you come on too strong, or if you make a move at the wrong time, it can all fall apart. But when done right, just like in dating, the payoff can be amazing. And according to McKinsey, organizations that excel at personalization, they get this right, they typically are 40% more profitable. So now that I talked a little bit about getting it right, I want to really dig into how do we turn some of the key identity insights into revenue. So essentially, SIAM enables you to understand how, where, and when customers are registering and logging into your services. So with these insights, you can actually spot issues that will allow you to improve customer experience and also conversion. For example, you could spot issues with the sign up. So you can see things like sign-up failures, potentially being caused by failed login attempts due to forgotten passwords, as an example, or failed conversion due to too long of a registration form. With these insights, you can actually take action, right? You can implement some A/B testing of different alternatives, for example, shorter registration forms, or testing out alternate forms of authentication beyond password. You can also utilize identity insights to identify threats, such as influx in traffic that can indicate bots. So for example, if you're seeing significant spikes in signup or logins or password resets at a given moment in time from a specific location, that could be indicative of a bot attack. And, bots are not just a security department issue, they are a marketing issue as well, because marketing fraud is on the rise. And bots, they skew analytics, they impact our marketing spend, and they obviously create a poor user experience while also diminishing customer trust. And lastly, you can utilize insights to identify opportunities for segmentation, right? So as an example, someone logging in with GitHub really tells you something about that individual versus someone that's logging in with Facebook. So to summarize, customer identity is a trusted data source to customer data systems. It actually captures and provides first-party data, context, and verifies the legitimacy of identifiers. So essentially, marketers could confidently know that contact methods are valid and they actually belong to a real person. Also, customer identity can be used to accurately link customer identity across different sources. It can be used to enrich user profiles. And of course, it provides usage and behavior insights, again, as to how, when, and where customers are interacting with your services. This allows marketers to identify points of friction, ultimately to improve conversion. And of course, marketers can use this trusted identity data and use as insights to really facilitate targeted omnichannel campaigns and a convenient and trustworthy interaction cycle with your customer throughout their digital customer journey. So today we covered quite a bit. Essentially, we talked about the challenges of capturing customer data, the data that you actually need to build strong customer relationships, and of course, how customer identity plays a role in all of that. But if you leave here with nothing else, I really do want you to remember that poor data quality really costs organizations a lot of money per year. And maintaining that data quality is increasingly difficult. However, simply unifying data without having a trusted source to validate its legitimacy, everything will fall apart. So the answer is, being able to obtain consented personal data obviously is superior than anonymous tracking. But how do you do that? Again, it really boils down to having that trusted source to verify the legitimacy of it. So now I will turn it over to Nancy to kick off the Q&A.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Liz. This was fantastic. I really enjoyed everything about your conversation. I mean, you really hit on the issue that there's just not trust out there. And it's not only, it's the responsibility lies across the organization, I think is what you said, and so much more within marketers, how it affects our ROI and so forth. And you hit on progressive profiling. And I have to say, from experience, that has changed our life. So I love that you touched on that and talked a little about progressive profiling. That was fantastic. We have a lot of questions from the audience, so I'm going to jump in. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All righty, here we go. The first question I have are, what types of identity data do CIAM solutions capture?
Sure. Well, there's a lot. CIAM data really spans device, location, demographic, captures events, activity, identifiers, authenticators like passwords, SMS. and also preferences. So just to put it into context, for instance, the Okta Customer Identity Cloud captures identifiers a user is providing when creating an account, uh, location, devices, IP addresses that the user is logging in from, the number of times a user is logging in, the application the user is logging into, the risk profile of that login, and of course, verified email or phone number used during any sort of authentication challenge.
Okay, thank you. And are you suggesting that a customer identity and access management system should be the system of record for customer information?
No, I'm not suggesting
Okay.
that. In fact, this is a organizational decision.
Okay.
And of course, like every organization looks different, right? Their tech footprint is going to be different. They're going to have different use cases and requirements. On top of it, it's not uncommon to have multiple systems of record, such as multiple CRMs. So I'm not suggesting that CIAM take the role of like the end all be all for to be like the customer data master here. However, I do want to emphasize the value that identity data provides, again, to accurately identify customers across siloed systems. And of course, to provide, to basically weave the picture of the customer, something that actually marketers can confidently rely on because it is verified, it is legitimate, it is consented.
Okay, thank you. And speaking of systems, don't CDPs take care of identity resolution?
Yes, they do. However, because the data quality is an issue, right? And that arises because of fragmentation. And this is what the CDP solves, right? It's able to take bits and pieces of customer data, resolve it, create a single picture. But that's hard because, again, the data is not verified. And oftentimes, because it is collected across all these systems, it's not reliable. However, when integrated with a CIAM solution, CDP can benefit from additional verified attributes, including a unique user ID that's assigned by the CIAM system.
Thank you. I'm actually taking personal notes over here for my own use. Now, you may not be able to speak specifically to this, but there's a question. What are some strategies Okta clients are leveraging when it comes to ensuring data quality, or they're just some high level that you can share here?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, as I mentioned before, there isn't a one size fits all approach. Again, each company will have its own unique requirements and its own tech implementation. But generally, and this is across the board, organizations will look towards a CIAM solution to unify access. So the sign up and login experience across all of the digital properties, whether that's mobile, web, chat, social, what have you. And then they want to extend this data into their existing tech stack via integrations. And in our case, we support thousands of out-of-the-box integrations with downstream systems, including CRM, fraud detection, CDPs, and more. We have an extensive partner marketplace, and that's obviously a key to this, right? It's not just about CIAM and the identity data that it captures, but it's the ability to actually share that data across the organization. And it's not only from a marketing perspective, but it touches almost every single department.
Thank you. And speaking of sharing data and integrating data with CIAM, specifically, what kind of data can be shared between CIAM and a CDP?
Well, essentially any data that a CIAM solution captures can be shared, right? Again, it's up to the organization to decide what bits of data they want to action and to extract. But basically, identity events have a variety of use cases. So I won't prescribe what to do with the information. But again, just for reference, to give this a little bit more color, we have a customer that is leveraging its Okta CIAM integration with its CDP to do things like gauge conversions. So the marketing team is looking at logging events to spot issues. And then obviously, when they spot those issues, they take action to minimize those issues or remove them. And also they're looking at the login events to create segments for further targeting and personalization. The customer support team is utilizing it. So when a customer calls in, they're able to look at login activity to verify. Let's say the user is calling for an account lockout. They're able to verify that the user is actually locked out and it's not some nefarious actor. And they also can utilize the information to identify or verify the user's identity. And lastly, the security team is actually also utilizing login events to diagnose potential account breaches. Yeah. So I think, again, to the point that I made earlier, it's not just a single department thing. SIAM data really can be utilized across the board. And in fact, it should be.
And this next question, they believe not every product category or business model lends itself to experiences that people may want to log into. For instance, how would what you're saying apply to FMCG brands? FMCG being fast moving consumer goods.
Well, in terms of like the login experience, so identity is obviously account creation, right? So we're talking about being able to sign up and log in. So it's a key part of it. FMC, I would have to further ponder on this one, but it would require that initial registration and then subsequent login to capture sort of identity data.
Thank you. And I like this question because this next one, I kind of had this in my mind as well. And it's kind of talking about timing and touch points, if you will. The question says, let's say you have all of Marcus's information in January 2023. When would you begin asking him again to update his information? Would you do it 3 months, 6 months out? Is there a cadence or is it an opportunity?
It could vary. So there isn't any sort of average cadence. It really varies by industry and the organization themselves, right? And really, again, if you kind of think about yourself, like my example, right? Like last week I was in market for Father's Day gifts, cameras was on my mind. This week, that's not the case. I don't need to be seeing any sort of advertising for cameras or getting any like recommendations for cameras because it's not going to be relevant to me. So really the cadence needs to be, it's really going to be dependent on the company and their business model. But I would say you do want to have like some touch points in terms of preferences, progressive profiling with the questions, like being triggered after, let's say, a user engaged with a piece of content or purchased something. I mean, that's immediate, right? So there's intelligence behind it. This specific customer engaged with XYZ content, let me trigger. So there could be rules set up, but it would require, some sort of action from the user.
Do you have any guidance on how to address Children's Online Privacy Protection Act constraints? It's a big one, right?
Yeah, it's a big one. Again, I think here we just need to be mindful of the types of data that we collect, but it's also about providing those controls to your users. So the transparency, the control, and you can do that, directly from the login screen and also the sign up screen, making sure that, you're just tailoring that to address any sort of specific regulation like this, and making that visible to users. But I hope that I answered the question. Of course, like we can always follow up with more details after the fact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, you did. And that's all the questions we have. We'll get back to anybody with any further information that you may be asking as far as the questions go. And Liz, thank you so much for sharing all these insights. It was wonderful having you here with us today, getting to know you as well. Before we wrap up, let me take a moment and tell everybody what's happening across eMarketer's media channels. You can register for more live analyst and Tech Talk webinars at emarketer.com/webinars. On the audio side of the house, don't forget Behind the Numbers. That's our daily podcast. We also have Reimagining Retail and the Banking Payment Show. And please check out our newsletters. I have a really big announcement. sneak peek, we are going to be launching a retail media weekly newsletter coming in July. I'm super excited about this. It's such an important topic within our industry, and we're really looking forward to bringing our readers more updated coverage on retail media. Keep an eye on your email. We're going to send a link to today's recording as well as the slides. Share it around your organization. What Liz presented today was absolutely critical for marketers for the entire organization as well. Again, thank you for your time to our audience. And Liz, thanks again to you, the entire team at Okta, as well as behind the scenes, our Studio II team. And we'll see you all on our next Tech Talk. Thank you. Bye-bye.